I suppose I was a closet extrovert. Growing up, I was extremely shy and well into my 20s. I was paralyzed with fear when it came to public speaking. I'm not alone because it seems to be a very common affliction with most people. And there are many reasons why that is. I think the main reasons are it's a social conditioning thing. When we go up in front of a crowd, we're being judged, and a lot of the fear is based in that. But the more important reason is, I believe, because of lack of experience. It's a skill set that we all have. Even if you're an introvert, being able to speak and communicate in a public scenario in front of crowds is a skill that we all have at some level, and we can develop it. And I'm going to show you and explain to you some of the best techniques that I've learned in my life on how to do that and why I think it's so important. Yeah, I heard a saying the other day or a few weeks ago, introverts make the best extroverts. I thought that was really cool. You know, Johnny Carson was an introvert as well as many other public figures. And their ability to get up and pull off monologues and speak with confidence and to speak with a lot of good quality impromptu communication skills, I'm going to guess not something that they were born with, something they had to work at. And that just proves my point, that it's something that we can all develop and we should. So I was very shy growing up, like exceptionally shy. And I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's an excuse. And thankfully, when I was 31 years old, I changed my direction in life. And I tapped into my ability to speak in public. It really held me down. It really, really did. School, when I started my business. And again, I felt deep inside of me, there was something that I wanted more out of life, and I really wanted to tap into that ability. And I did when I was 31 years old, as I mentioned. I joined Toastmasters. And it's not a coincidence that I joined Toastmasters 2 weeks after I started going to 12-step meetings. I kind of figured, well, if I can do that, I can do this. And that's pretty much what it is. It's almost like a domino effect. Being able to face my inner demons and take the challenges of life and take steps towards being a public speaker. And when I say public speaker, I don't mean to say that I wanted to be able to put it on my business card or my resume. I'm a public speaker. It's not a job or it's just something that you have as a skill set. Probably not a lot different than learning to play an instrument or learning to create art at some level. But being able to speak in public, I think, is one of the most important skills. Well, I'm going to say it is the number one most important skill. Learning to speak with confidence, with clarity, to speak impromptu, to be able to control your emotions, and to be able to sort of get your thoughts organized in such a way that you can clearly, or at least as clearly as you possibly can, say what you're trying to say. Some people are good at this, but they're the exception to the rule. It's like those people in school, you know, who never study and they get an A+ and they ace the exams. I hate those people. But there are some people who just have no issues with speaking in public. And but we're not talking about them. And even those people, like I've seen people like teachers and whatnot who speak in front of groups all the time, obviously, join Toastmasters, and they're like petrified, and they're surprised at how scared they were. And it's like, well, there's something there for you to look at. There's probably more room for improvement insofar as your communication skills are concerned. So, like I said, I think inside of me, I've had the extrovert just being held back by these neurotic emotional limits, and I always wanted to burst out. There's one scene or one memory in my life when I was 17 years old, which was a bad year for me. A lot of bad stuff happened to me. I was kicked out of school, but anyways, I ended up working for 3 months with my uncle, who coincidentally at that time needed somebody to help him out, and I was available. I wasn't in school. I was kicked out. And he was frustrated. You know, he was a very successful businessman. And I was a 17-year-old punk in his house. And I was his nephew, his family, and I was glad he was there to help me out. But I remember one morning, I was there for about 2 weeks. I was just groggy first thing in the morning. And he sat me across the kitchen table and he said, "Rob, one of the most important things in life is the ability to communicate." And I never forgot that, because I never really had anybody talk to me that way before. And I guess to him, it was something of value. And he was probably more frustrated than anything because I didn't talk much. My mom used to tell me I was very shy, and she always felt sorry for me. And I was like, well, you know, I don't want to play victim or anything, but kind of would have been nice to get a little nudge. So my daughter, who's now 24, 25 years old, is a very proficient public speaker, because when she was young, I did not want for her to go through what I went through. So we encouraged her to speak in front of her class. And she was very young. We took her away for 2 weeks out of school to Costa Rica back in our first trip there in 2004. And the teachers we asked the teachers, you know, can we take her out for 2 weeks? And they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. And we or they or somebody suggested that she do a project while she's gone, and they gave her some homework. And the project was on Costa Rica. All right, that's fair enough. And I suggested that she do this in front of the class, because I wanted her to have that experience of speaking in front of others. And, you know, we always pushed her lovingly into those experiences. And when she was older, she joined Toastmasters, and she became quite good. So I think it's a gift, and a gift that's so valuable that I tie it to your inner voice, your inner truth, so to speak, your inner calling. When you manage to be able to speak effectively in front of others, it has a domino effect. It has it almost becomes an ally to your true calling in life, so to speak. It's like a catalyst. And it's hard to say exactly how it's going to unfold, but it's something worth doing. Now, I'm going to give you some specifics. It's a skill set. I've always said this. It's a skill set like any other skill set. Don't get into this trap of, I'm not good at public speaking. I wasn't born that way. I don't have the gift of gab. It's complete and utter nonsense. You know, I'm not a very good trombone player. Well, I've never played it, but if I practiced it for a few years, I might be okay, if you know what I mean. It's the exact same thing with public speaking. It's a skill set. So when I first joined Toastmasters, I had the drive and I had the passion to want to get good at it, and I was scared to death. So when I joined Toastmasters, my number one thing was just show up, sign up, pay the registration. By the way, if you're looking for opportunities to speak and hone your public speaking skills, in my opinion, I don't know of any other better avenue. You can try studying this, but that's just like trying to study, say, jujitsu or guitar or a language. It's really, really difficult just by studying alone. You need to practice, and in front of others. You have to face the fears. There's no other way around it. And to me, the very best way is to join Toastmasters. And then you'll tap into your gifts. You'll tap into your higher calling, so to speak. It's a wonderful feeling. I'm now at the point where I'm going to brag a little bit, and I really feel strongly about this. From a shy, paralyzed with fear young man to somebody who could, if you gave me a topic and said, okay, Rob, there's 500 people beyond that door in an auditorium, and I want you to go speak for an hour on this topic, any random topic. I could do it. I could do it because I have the confidence, I have the skills, and I know what it takes to be able to communicate. And this is stuff that I've learned through my experiences, which all started with Toastmasters. Or if you have something similar to Toastmasters, where you're able to get up in front of people, you have to practice over and over and over again, and you will notice that you get more confident. And then the only way to practice is to get up in front of people over and over and over again. So when I first joined Toastmasters, I was scared to death. Within a month, I'd scheduled my first speech, and I was so nervous. And I told myself, I said, well, I'm getting out of here in a year. There's a program where you do 10 speeches and you achieve what's called your CTM, your Competent Toastmaster. It's level 1, and you have to do 10 speeches. And after a year, I was only halfway through because I started volunteering for other activities and I was enjoying myself. After about 6, 7 months, I started to really enjoy myself. I felt like I had the butterflies lined up in formation instead of running rampant throughout my stomach. And my nerves were somewhat under control. And then after 2 years, I achieved my CTM, my 10 speeches, and I kept going for like 9 more years. I went back. I'm still in it. I enjoy it. I enjoy helping others, and it's a marvelous thing to see people go through the same experiences or similar experiences that I went through in public speaking. So I'll give you some more benefits, and I'll give you a couple tips. The benefits, well, they pretty much go without saying. You really elevate your sense of self, your sense of confidence, your sense of creativity, and it'll help your job, your business. It'll help directly, indirectly, consciously, subconsciously, and on so many different ways. But you have to be able to go through the experiences of mastering public speaking, and it's not that hard. You just got to face the fears and practice in front of others. So when I started Toastmasters and I was really nervous about doing my first speech, here's what I did. And to some degree, I still do speeches the same way. So I printed out my speech, and you're never supposed to memorize a speech. That's really a bad idea because memorizing it by rote is not good. You want to get a sense of what it is you're going to speak about, and through practice, get to know the content. And what I did back in the day was I got a tape recorder and I got in front of a mirror and I would go through my speech, even though it was written, I'd write it down on some notes. And I would go through the actual experience in front of a mirror of me going through my speech. That's in the early days. I don't have to do that now, but back then, this is a really good strategy. And then play back your recording, listen to yourself. This is between you and your reflection and your recording. So it's kind of safe, right? Takes away that social stigma, that social anxiety. And then if you do that 10, 15 times, what's going to happen is you're going to be somewhat accustomed to that speech, at least in speaking it. You haven't spoken it in front of a group yet, but helping at least at that level is going to help you immensely, and it certainly did me. So you may not find that tip's useful, or you may be more confident, you may be able to pull off a speech. So that's what I did the first year when I was in Toastmasters. And then I got to the point where I could sort of write my speech out. I would try and not memorize it word for word, but memorize the core principles, the core content. And the way I would do that, and they teach this in any public speaking course, you have an introduction, you have 3 major points, and then you have a close. So one way to summarize that is tell them what you're going to say it in 3 parts, and then tell them what you just said. It's really simple, isn't it? So I would do that, have my speech, and say, what are my main 3 points? Now, the first speech in Toastmasters is an excellent example. It's called the icebreaker, and it's an excellent example on how to use this technique. It's called the icebreaker, and you're supposed to introduce yourself. Now, this is easy because you know yourself. And by the way, knowing a topic is probably one of the most important aspects to being able to give a good speech. Now, I said earlier, I could go in front of a group of people and speak impromptu for an hour on a random topic. I would consider that a more advanced skill set. That's called being able to speak on the fly, speak impromptu. I'll talk about that in a minute. I don't want to scare you, though, in case it's scary. Stick with the basics, where you're still learning how to formulate yourself in front of a group of people with confidence and to be able to, say your speech. So what happens is you sort of get the core, you got your introduction, your close, and you got your three major points. So if it's an icebreaker, I talk about, or anybody would talk about, where they're from, what they're doing now, and where they're planning on going in the future. See that? 3 simple points. Now, you can use some memory strategies besides practicing that over and over and over again. What I would do is I would try and practice it by heart. And I still do that to this day. I'll do it in my studio. I'll do it in my car. I'll do it while I'm at home. I'll just all of a sudden start my speech. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about bada bada boo, bada bing. And practice is so important. And this is something that after a while, you get to really know the content of your speech by heart-ish. I don't want to say by heart because it sounds like you got to learn it word for word. That's the worst thing you can do. You want to get the essence of it, and you want to speak conversationally. Once you do that, once you give a bunch of speeches in front of a group of people, you'll notice your confidence level will rise, and you'll notice opportunities in your life will open up. It's amazing. And when that opportunity presents itself, instead of saying, oh my God, I could never do that, I could never do that presentation in front of my group of coworkers or this or that, or if you're at a sort of, let's say you're at a conference and there's 300 people in the room and the speaker is a big famous so-and-so, and they ask a question and you know the answer to that question, your hand goes up because you are not afraid. That's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So the advanced strategy, when you combine experience to being able to speak impromptu, I'll just touch on it really quickly and then I'll let you go. One of the strategies is there's 2 sides to it. So let's say somebody said, Rob, I want you to speak about giraffes. I just pulled that out of the air, a random topic. Here's a group of 500 people, you got to go speak for an hour. And I say, okay, and I walk out in front of the stage and everybody goes, yay, thank you. One thing I do is take the concept of, say, giraffes and convert it to something I know about, right? Simple. I'll say giraffes. Don't you find giraffes to be an amazing animal? I mean, they got those long necks that reach way to the top of trees. I think evolution had something to do with that. What do you think? So you see, I'm asking the audience a question. And I never say you're a great audience, or I never refer to them as an audience. I say you. What do you think? Because when you're an individual in the audience, you're you're an individual person. You're not an audience. So it drives me nuts when I hear, you make a great audience. You're a wonderful looking audience. So what I'll do is I'll say, take that concept of giraffes. Now, here's the thing. I'm standing up in front of the stage, and if I'm a beginner, and I go back to my early days, I'd be having a panic attack. Like I remember when I was 21 years old, the first time I had ever done a speech. Oh man, I just paralyzed. I grabbed onto the lectern and I had my head down and I had to read a speech. It was a very short one. And I was just hyperventilating. And all I could think about was the exit door over here. And I was having a total panic attack and I wanted to run. And I looked up at the audience and I started reading and then I looked up at the audience. And as soon as I looked up at the audience, the anxiety level dropped. And everybody felt bad for me. So nowadays, like I mentioned, I'm in front of 500 people with the giraffe story going through my head. And I start off by saying, what's obvious? Let's state what's obvious. What do I know about giraffes? Isn't it amazing how giraffes are these amazing animals that live in Africa and they have these long, tall necks and they reach to the top of the trees. And I think evolution had something to do with that. By the way, I'm just making that up as I'm speaking to you. So what I would do now is I would take that idea of Africa, evolution, and reaching to the top. Are you working with me on this one? So, Africa is an amazing country. I think there are probably more people that want to go to Africa so that they can take some photographs. Just so happens I'm a photographer. I love photographing anything and everything. Now I can talk about photography for 20 minutes. You get it? So I've segued giraffes, Africa, photography. Then I can talk about evolution. I could talk about human evolution. Isn't it amazing how we can go from being a petrified, absolutely frozen with fear, with, anxiety-ridden speaker to somebody who could speak with complete confidence? It's amazing, isn't it? That's evolution at work. And we all have the ability to tap into our own evolution. So I've turned giraffes into photography and into human empowerment. So I'm taking the subject and I'm tying the knots. And then I could talk about, so I've talked about photography, human evolution, and let's go with the final topic, which would be reaching for the top. All of us, if we evolve properly, can find ways to reach for the top of the trees, just like a giraffe. So, and then when you conclude, you tie all three, summarize it, tell them what you just talked about. You understand what I'm saying? That's an advanced technique. You know, people like Tony Robbins and a lot of these famous public speakers who do a lot of this stuff have the ability just to boom, 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 bang this stuff out. And you can, to some degree, eventually get to that point. It takes practice. It's a skill set that you have to work at, just like any other thing. And it's an ability that we all have and we ought to tap into so that we can become the best that we can be. The people that are listening to you, it's the most intimidating thing in the world. But you don't appear as nervous as you think you do. This is a fact. If you go to any place like Toastmasters or any public speaking experience, and then you're really nervous and you ask people later, oh, I was so nervous, they'll always say, yeah, you didn't look nervous. And it's true. It's a zillion times worse inside than it is on the outside. But what I do as another strategy when I'm speaking, I fake it. So let's say I have a topic or I'm lost and I kind of forgot my speech. I'll do this. I'll go, it got me thinking. So I'm pausing, but I'm trying to remember where I was at, or I'm trying to think of something else to say. So inside of me, I'm like, I got lost. I have no idea where I'm going. But on the outside, I'm like, you just stop and you turn, you walk the stage a little bit, and you just give yourself a few seconds. I think stand-up comics do that quite a bit. So anyways, I encourage you to tap into the art of public speaking. I encourage you to either join Toastmasters or something similar and tap into one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and that is the ability to speak with confidence. It's going to help you at work. It's going to help you in the group situation. It's going to help you socially. It's going to help you on so many levels. Thank you very much.